another episode of From There to Here. And today I have a local entrepreneur. I think that's the title I'm going to give her. This is Stephanie Gonter. Known her for a long time through our kids, but she's here today because she's recently started a business venture here in the Ormond Beach area. And I want her to talk about it and just her journey that deals with the bookstore and beyond. So, without further ado, Ms. Gonter, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am doing fine, and thank you for being here on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start with what I led off with. I told, I'm sorry, let's go back. Before I talk about your what the business, the lead off question I normally have for my guests is, what would be your elevator speech? Which, for the people who don't know what that means, you got on an elevator, you're only going to be on there for a few seconds, and you have to kind of boil down who and what you are in a few seconds. What would you say as your elevator speech?
Well, my name is Stephanie Gonter. As you mentioned, I own Novelty Bookshop. That's novel T as in tea. Novelty Bookshop here in Ormond Beach, Florida. It's an independent bookstore and loose leaf tea company. So you can come in, get a bag of tea to take home with you, or sit and enjoy a cup of tea at the shop.
All right. And one of the reasons why I like to have guests on here is those that are doing new things, new ventures, just trying to see what the background and the genesis of that is, because maybe it will inspire somebody else. All right. So something I also often do here, I do a section called lies. I'm going to say something that I think is a lie, and
Okay.
then you're going to correct me and tell me what's what. So here it is.
Okay.
Here's a lie. You came from a wealthy, long line of booksellers and tea importers. You grew up around the business and lots of wealth. So you starting this business is second nature because it's what you and your wealthy family have done your whole life. I feel like that's probably a lie. If that is a lie, here's some correction.
Actually, it's completely true. I'm just kidding.
Oh, there you go.
No, it is definitely not true. While it did come a little naturally because I am an avid book reader, lover of all things literature for since I was a kid, it is very far from what I was brought up in and where I've come from. My background is actually in higher education. I've worked in post-secondary education in the technical realm for the last 15 years. And the last 6 years I spent working on a startup, and I just kind of started to realize I needed to do a startup for me, not make someone else money. Let me make myself some money.
Mm,
And what else would I rather do it but then with something I absolutely love. And when I knew that I wanted to open a bookstore, I mean, that's always been a dream of mine, but I knew I wanted to have some kind of a cafe or drink experience for people who came in. And coffee always kind of has that go 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 mentality. You get it to get caffeinated, to get busy and start your day and zoom through the next meeting. I wanted people to be able to come in, sit down, take a breath, and relax. And tea has always had that. You have it at the end of a long day, have a cup of tea, relax, and that's the atmosphere I really wanted in my bookstore. So that's why I started to kind of dive into teas probably about 2 or 3 years ago, really getting very serious about it a couple years ago.
mm.
And I'm still learning every day.
Well, I don't think there's a person out there who hasn't at least dreamed about starting their own thing or their own business. But I'm sure there's a lot of misconceptions about it. So, can you tell me a few things about owning and running your own business that maybe the typical person may not know about, but that you're finding out about?
Oh man, it is if you only want to work a 40-hour work week, get a 9 to 5 job. It is all day, every day. Expect to be up all night thinking and coming up with new ideas that you feel like you need to implement, but not knowing when the time is right to implement.
Mm.
It is constantly, constant brainstorming. I mean, I mentioned to you when we jumped on, My wall here in the background, this is me building another uh, another iteration of my business plan as I work to kind of step into a new realm. It is constantly evolving, constantly changing. Even I'm coming up on my 1 year of being a business, and from where I started to where I am is so vastly different than I could have ever thought. That I think it's important to kind of go in with vision and a plan, but don't expect to don't you almost need to expect to branch out off of that because things are always changing.
Now, was there a moment that made you definitively say, okay, I'm going to do this, or I need to make this commit to this? Was it just over time or one event? What made you make the leap?
Make that jump. Well, for me, it was a really bad day at work. It was one of those things that I have an incredible group of girlfriends, and I had a really bad day at work, and I jumped on my group chat with my girlfriends, and I said, I'm so tired. I just kind of want to just quit, open my bookstore and my tea shop and be done with it. And I had to go into a meeting. So I had my phone on my desk. I went into a meeting and I come back to 150 text messages of not just how I can, but how I should open my business. And having people behind you that believe in you and encourage you constantly, and it's very helpful when you're taking on something new, especially when you constantly second guess yourself like I do.
Okay.
But that was the pivotal moment for me, was having other people believe me that I could do it. And then of course you kind of feel like, okay, now they've put this trust in me and they this belief in me. I have to live up to it.
Yeah.
So it's been really good accountability for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. We think about the cheering section boosting us, but I don't really hear people talk about how you're accountable to them too, and they kind of give you
Mhm.
something to live up to. I haven't heard people talk that way about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I have my family, my husband and my boys. I have 3 boys, so I, work really hard to make them proud of me. And so, I want to do well. I want to do well by them.
Now, I know I've talked to quite a few people who are entrepreneurs or business people in different degrees, and some of them have kind of the artistic love first. Like I'm thinking about Caroline, a visual artist. Um, but then she does it for a business now, so she has to
Mhm.
put that. She's a creator, but now she has to put that business hat on. So for you, the artistic heart who loves reading and literature and all that, but now you have to wear that business hat. So is it difficult, or you could describe that balance, learning the functioning on that business side, though you have your creative side that maybe becomes more natural, if I'm making sense.
Yes, it makes total sense because, I thought opening a bookstore, I'll get to read all the time now. I get to read books before they get published, or not published, but before they're released, all of these things. But the fact of the matter is I have less time to read. I have less time to be creative. I do find myself being able to use my creative outlets in different ways. But the admin part of opening a business and running a business, I think you talk to any entrepreneur, they're going to tell you that it is very difficult to run a business that is a business you love, because you really want to pour so much into what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much behind the scenes in the admin piece of it, bookkeeping, and all of the taxes, and the licensing, and all of these things that you aren't the fun, this just not the fun part, but you got to do it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, is there a, I was going to ask you to describe a typical day, but is there such thing as a typical day in what you're doing?
Oh man. Well, I mean, outside of the typical walking in and turning lights on and starting the hot water for the tea, I think the thing that I love the most about my business is the fact that there's all different people walking through my door, and different conversations and new friends that I've made. I've actually made friends with a lot of my routine customers, and I think about, like, I know when to expect them to walk through the door because they're my regulars.
Right.
But so I think that's probably the most fun part, is I don't know what my day holds. It is not the same thing every day. But yeah.
Have you had, is there a business community? And or I know in the space you were in, I know I was talking to angels in the art world and stuff.
Mhm.
Could you talk about the community, business wise or whatever, that kind of is connected to or supports what you do? If I'm saying that.
Yes, so you bring up Angel. So my situation is very unique in the fact of, I had another business offer to allow me to do a pop-up in her. She's an artist. Her name is Angel Loudon. She owns the studio here in Ormond Beach, and has been an artist for over 30 years. Um, and is very renowned in the area. She's done all of the mural work at Fugu, and people, and she's a muralist. They hire her to do these jobs, but she has a studio and gallery and boutique here in Ormond, and she had never met me before. I'd never met her. Invited me in after seeing me on Instagram and just kind of feeling a connection through the internet. Invited me in and offered me to do a pop-up in her location. And I was a little taken aback at first, just because I thought it was such a generous offer to someone who I'd never met before. But it ended up being such an amazing relationship for the two of us. Um, it's brought a lot of awareness to what she does every day, and then of course it's given me a space to grow my business and bring more awareness to what I do. And we just have a lot of fun together. So, you talk about the creativity piece, and
Yeah.
um, she brings out the creativity in me, and she often laughs that I inspire her. We've done a lot of tea with our art with tea, excuse me, and being able to just be creative together has been really fun. And then outside of Angel, I've formed really good friendships with a lot of other small business owners in the area, Eastern Volusia County mostly. The Bold Ladies of Business gave me their first ever grant as a small business owner, so that was really encouraging. But yeah, I think the biggest and most important piece of building a business is to network with other small business owners,
Okay.
because they know what you're going through.
I got it. Um, Now I've heard that you talked about how you, of course, like most people, you worked for other entities and stuff before you branched out on your own.
Mhm.
Some of the people I've talked to have said they had to learn that it was uh, give themselves permission, I guess, to work hard for themselves the way they had worked hard for other people. Could you talk about that aspect, if that's
Ah,
clear?
yes, yes. I have always been one of those employees that no matter what is needed, I work hard to get it done. I've always been one of those employees, and I've always taken pride in being the one that um not necessarily works the hardest, but is at least working to motivate other people to work as hard as I do, and we build off of each other. But I yeah, that's a really hard question to answer, mainly because I'm so bad at it.
That's, that's a good
I think,
question.
yeah, I'm fighting allergies, everyone. I'm so sorry. I've
Oh,
been drinking lots of tea. It's helping.
there you
But yeah, as far as that question goes, I think the biggest thing is reminding myself that I deserve a weekend, that I deserve a break. That's been very difficult because on my days off, I'm like, okay, well, I have a lot of admin stuff I need to be getting done. So that's probably the hardest piece, because if I'm home, I feel like I need to be on the computer.
okay. And again, this is what a lot of kind of the business owners have told me, especially when they're new at it and they're just
Yeah,
coming from working for other people and now doing it themselves.
yeah, that list never ends.
Let me see. Okay, another. myth, I guess, that people have about owning your own business or your own thing, that you basically sit in an office and you just wait for wheelbarrows of money to come to you. And really all you do is just count the money that's just raking in. You don't physically have to do enough. You got people for that. And basically you just sit there and let all the money just kind of float into you. Please dispel all the trash I just said.
Well, excuse me. I mean, the biggest myth to that is probably the fact that I can't afford to hire anyone. So, ultimately, if I'm going to have my business open, I have to be there to run it. So I'm the barista, I am the person behind the counter, I am the bookseller, I am the book buyer. People often ask me, how do you know what books to pick? I do a lot of research. So there's a lot that goes into curating books for a bookstore. There's a lot that goes to curating teas. And then if you have customers who are looking for a certain blend, having to blend those teas.
Oh,
So I'm my own accountant. I'm my own bookkeeper. I am my own social media expert in quotes. Um, I am my own janitor. I have to clean up at the end of the shift. All of these things are I am the only person. And so I do have the benefit of being in a location with Angel. So we do act as partners in that space. So like today is our only day that we are closed. Mondays is our days that we are closed. We're now open Tuesdays through Sundays. So I work Sunday, she takes Sunday off, and then I take Tuesday off and she works Tuesdays. So that way we are able to stay open 6 days a week. But other than that, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do I'd be working six days a week if I didn't have her. So it is a very big myth that we just sit back and wait for the wheelbarrow. I would love that. If anybody has a wheelbarrow, send it my way.
okay. I'm thinking about like the Disney Scrooge McDuck just having
Yeah,
mountains of money and that kind of stuff.
just ride the gold coins right out the safe, right?
Okay, there we go. Um, when you look back time wise, the part of the show is just kind of trace the steps that led you to where you are and then beyond. Do you feel like you started this at the right time? Do you feel like maybe I should have done it sooner? What do you think about I'm going to say the cosmic timing of all of this?
That's such a great question. My husband and I talk about that all the time. And we had a family very young. We were married very young, and I could not have done this in my 20s. We financially couldn't have afforded to go down to pretty much negative one income. Not even just one income, but it's almost like negative one income because all the extra goes to the business.
Yeah.
But we think about all of our friends who are entrepreneurs that have young children, and I don't know how they do it. I have one of my sons left in the home. My other two are grown. The one left in the home is a sophomore, so he's pretty self-sufficient. But even then, my husband has picked up a lot of the carpooling and the making sure homework is done and dinner's on the table because a lot of times I don't get home till late or I have to work on the computer. So
Okay.
we would not have been able to do this if I were in my 20s or even my 30s. I'm proud to say I'm 44-year-old entrepreneur. I've always been a firm believer that it's never too late to start something new. And I'm happy to be the age I am and doing what I am because I mean at this point, this is going to be our retirement and hopefully something that we can leave behind to our kids. So
Well,
yeah.
and, I agree, and I'm older than you, so you just say that you're 44 and it's not too late. I'm thinking, of course, you're still a baby yourself. Um, on the theme of the path and stuff, do you see things from your previous jobs or previous life period that you look now and you say those things in some way help prepare me or taught me lessons that are helping me now? Do you see that when you look backwards?
Absolutely. Working in higher education, when I was working at a trade school here in Daytona, Ormond, I was really active in the community and networking. That was like something I really learned in that job. And then when that school closed, we worked really hard to reopen another trade school. And the lessons that I learned in doing a startup for a trade school was, I mean, they're just invaluable. There's so much that I learned with doing a startup in general, let alone an educational institution. The laws that go into that, and just all of the policies and procedures, and helped me to really kind of understand um, a long timeline and how I need to be patient because nothing is going to come quickly.
Okay.
I mean, I'm very blessed in the fact that my business has grown really quickly over the last year, but at the same time, I have a long way to go. So I'm really thankful for kind of that reminder of, it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that it's gonna take some time, and if it's something you believe in, it'll work out.
Well, on that note, as far as the trade school, it kind of hooks into something I often ask my guests. Pretend you have a friend and they have a child who's a senior in high school. They're about to graduate, and your friend sees the fact that you started, a business, and they look up to things you do, and they say, my Billy or my Sally, great kid, great person. They they're not quite sure what they want to do, with their life. They've done everything right in high school. Now they're not sure about college, work, trade, whatever. Would you just take them out to lunch? No, take them for some tea,
Take a
sit
first and
down
tea.
and talk with them, and just maybe you can be a help to them. So if you were to sit down with Billy or Sally in that scenario, what kind of advice do you think you might offer someone in that position?
College is not cookie cutter. It is not something that every single student needs. I think, my generation, after you graduated high school, didn't matter how much debt you went into college. For my boys, my oldest son actually went to a trade school, became a diesel mechanic, and is now working on the railroad and making more money than I ever did. Doing really, really well. And this was a kid who, not to completely divulge his story, but he was a high school dropout. He did not like in high school. He did not enjoy his time there. He didn't feel seen. He didn't feel understood. And for him, it was not a good fit. And so knowing his personality and his abilities, super intelligent, incredibly intelligent. But he needed a fast track to get to where he needed to be. And for him, it was a perfect fit. My middle son, went the military route. He's in the Marine Corps. And so he found something different too. And being able to um, complete his training, he's a combat photographer, and he's getting all kinds of college credits with no tuition. And, so he's gonna, yeah. So, I mean, it's been an incredible blessing for my kids to be able to do what they love to do without having to incur a ton of student loan debt. There is absolutely possibilities out there and programs out there. You just have to kind of keep your mind open and don't get stuck in the you have to go to college.
Yep, someone needs to hear that they just
Yeah,
have options. That college is on the
there
table
are.
or a bunch of other things.
Yeah. Find out what your passion is. And then I always told my kids too, at 18, you don't need to figure out what it is you're going to do for the rest of your life. Do something that can make you some money, give you something that you can fall back on and keep you stable. And then from there, if you find a hobby later on in life that you want to turn your attention to, then that's fine. But you want to always have something to fall back on.
That's right on. I know someone needs to hear that.
Mm.
They might be 14, 24, or 64 if they needed to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
How about I'm going to put you in the seat of being the wise, sage, wisdom person again. This time it's a grown up, someone who's not 18, and they have a business idea, and they're where you were maybe a year or so ago. They're teetering on the idea of wanting to take that leap. Do you have some advice for that person? Things that would either help them decide or things they should look out for as they begin? What would you share with that person?
Yeah, I would first, I would get a group that you trust together. A group of people who love you and appreciate you, number one, and ask them, is this a viable option? Do you see this being something somebody would use or need, depending on what the business is? And then from there, dive into the small business, the SBDC in your area. We have an incredible SBDC program here in Volusia County.
For those
Uh,
who don't know those letters, what's that stand for?
Small Business Development Corporation, I think it is. But they have a group of individuals. It's called SCORE, and that I cannot tell you what exactly that means, but it's basically a group of retired entrepreneurs who have volunteered their time to partner up with you and really mentor you through the whole process. I had the privilege the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, to be a part of a Kaufman startup program here in Ormond Beach, and that has been invaluable. Even there's people in there who have just an idea. There are people who just launched, and there's some who've been in business for several years now. And even for those who've been in business for several years, it's very helpful to kind of play off of other business owners or entrepreneurs to kind of hear different perspectives. Because sometimes we get tunnel vision, we get too close to it, and it's important to kind of be able to step back and you may think you have this brilliant idea, but maybe it's already out there and you just don't know it, or maybe you have a brilliant idea, but it needs just a little tweaking for it to really work. And so being able to confide in, don't just tell anybody because they might run with it, but
Okay.
yeah, don't just tell anybody, but being able to confide in people who are close to you and then find a mentor. Even if it's not through the SBDC, finding another small business owner that you trust, it would be, super helpful. Yeah.
Excellent. A couple of nuts and bolts things. How your particular field is having the bookstore and the tea.
Hmm.
What's the difference, or maybe there is no difference between how an independent bookstore like yours, how do you get books? Where do they come from versus the big chains that we know? Is it the same process? How do books come to you versus how they come to the big stores we know?
That is a great question. I could go into a long diatribe of how unfair it is with these big box stores. I won't do that. But what I can say for independent bookstores, we very carefully curate every book that we bring in. We trust that it's going to be something that our readers want to see. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. But there is a wholesaler here in the United States who I'd say probably 99% of booksellers use. And then we can actually order straight from the publishers. So we develop relationships with publishers, and you get a little bit of a perk in the fact that we do get to see advanced copies sometimes of books that are coming out. And then if it's something we really enjoy and we want to carry in our store, we can order from the publishers directly. But that's that's typically where most booksellers will get their books from, unless they're used booksellers. Some will just collect from anybody dropping off. So yeah.
Okay. And let me see, a couple more. I want you to rate yourself. I've always heard that entrepreneurs, independent business people, sometimes aren't very good at balance. That maybe balance is something that just can't happen at first or whatever. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 means I'm perfectly balanced in every area of my life. One meaning I'm a catastrophe, or somewhere in the middle. Where would you rate? Where would you rate your balancing my life
Oh,
score right now, a year into the business?
oh man. Well, so I kind of did myself a little bit of a favor going into this year. I have a nonprofit that I sit on the board for and I work very closely with, and I did take this year off, just because I expected that my balance would not be good, and it's it's been accurate.
Okay.
I would say I'm probably like a 3. It's
Oh,
not good.
oh
It's
my.
not good.
Oh my.
I'm tired all the time.
Okay.
I'm tired all the time. But I mean, I love what I do every day. So, for me, it's a payoff because I know it won't always be like this. I know it'll always be hard, but I know that eventually the balance will kind of even itself out again. I
That's very good. That's good that you say that you recognize that it won't. It's not great right now, but the balance thing, but that it don't won't always be that way. I think that's something that business owners or potential ones need to hear. That it's not
Yeah.
all. It's going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hope so. That's I'm shooting for. Work myself out of a job, right?
Nice. Well, yeah, and actually, you're reading my script. My last two
Oh.
questions. One is you're a startup, so you don't have staff at the moment. But
Mhm.
as that point comes, what would you, and from your background with your trade school stuff, could you describe what a potential good employee candidate would be for you once you have the finances to do that? What would you look for in that potential employee or employees?
Oh, that's a great question. I get people in all the time wanting to know if I'm hiring because, people who love to read love to be in bookstores. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not yet, but I'll get there eventually. So I would think my perfect employee would be someone who is a little quirky, very creative, loves books, loves to talk about books. Um, I have this little side note, but it kind of sums up my perfect candidate. But I have a coffee cup that sits, it's not a teacup, it's a coffee cup, it's big. That's that sits on my counter at the shop that says introverted but loves to talk about books.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's it in a nutshell. Somebody who, you're gonna need to talk to people. So you got to be open to talking, and but I think a lot of people who walk into a bookstore love to browse. So I have to stop myself sometimes from talking too much. I want them to be able to enjoy their time. So, um, yeah, I would say it's somebody who loves to read, someone who, is just genuine in who they are as a person. And, I think it's more about who they are as a person, as opposed to how hard of a worker they are for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense for the type of business that you have.
Yeah.
And my last question is, what about from here? What do you see going forward for novelty?
Oh, wow. We've got some big plans this year. So obviously we are continuing every week to grow in the shop, and we've just started doing full tea service in the shop. So you can come and order a teapot and sit and enjoy it. Um, but on the actual business side of things, the bigger umbrella, I'm working on doing tea and book subscription boxes. So you can order online, and you can have tea delivered monthly, quarterly, same with books. And then if you have a favorite tea, you can subscribe for that specific tea, if I can speak. And then that would be delivered monthly or quarterly. So that's like the next big piece. And then we're working on some new markets for this year. We're going to be out at the Celtic Festival for Ormond Beach, which is huge. And then at the Daytona Beach Art Festival in April. So really looking forward to those two big events.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very excited for you. I just it made me excited to know that you were doing this when I just stumbled on Instagram. I didn't know you'd already started it. I just exciting just to
Oh, thank you.
and to see the beginning of it and getting to see it grow and go into the shop. So I'm excited for you all. I really am.
Well, thank you. I love what I do every single day, and as tired as I am and as I get, it's worth getting up and doing again tomorrow. So
That's it. That's a
that's
quote.
it.
That's a good quote. That's it, right? That's it.